Hello and welcome to Conversations for Change. This episode, we've got an amazing guest called Carla Scott. Carla Scott is from Populace Threads. She is the CEO and founder and a big circularity advocate. So we're very lucky we've got her today. I wanted to start off the chat with you, Carla. Thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You're so welcome. I wanted to start off with getting a background on your journey because you've had such an interesting sustainability focus. And I wanted to see, where did that originally start? Did you have a moment that changed everything for you?
Probably a couple, to be honest. So for many years, I've worked sort of in management consulting, working with big business and government. And probably about 5 years ago, there was a big shift in focus towards shared economy models. And so a lot of clients that I was working with were looking at the ways that their business models might apply into the shared economy sort of innovations that were coming out. So I got a real sort of interest in shared economy and the shared economy models. And at the same time, my now 22-year-old daughter was in her final year of high school, and she was doing a assignment on business ethics, and the topic that she decided to choose was looking at the ethics of the fashion industry. And she moved very quickly through ethics into the environmental impact of the fashion industry. So she's coming home talking about all of these things that happen in the fashion sector, and I've got this kind of thinking in my head around shared economy models. I'm shocked about the impact story that she's telling me, and she's getting excited about the way that we could possibly apply shared economy models to her business ethics assignment.
Wow.
I think she was thinking she'd get an A because of, sort of new thinking. And out of that, and also out of watching the way that her friends and her share clothes and loan clothes to each other, rent clothes, that just a very different model and a very different emotional connection to clothing, I guess, than a lot of generations before them have had. We came up with this idea of just building almost like a share platform. The very first sort of MVP, or the very first product that we tested for Populace Threads, was this idea of, if I live locally and I have something that I don't want and you need something, then maybe we could just swap, or maybe we could just share. Or maybe I could sell it to you, but we could negotiate the price separately. So we built this platform where you could post clothes and you could message people. It had no transactions that went through it whatsoever. It was essentially just a share, like almost like a community board platform to put people in contact with each other. And we ran that for about 8 months. We actually launched it about a week before COVID hit Australia in 2020. Oh. So that was fun.
Good timing, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so during lockdown, I just kind of, spent lots of time talking with the people who were using it and testing different ideas with that user base. And then towards mid 2021, rebuilt the platform to bring financial transactions into it and allow people to sort of buy and sell and swap on the platform. And we've recently just relaunched the platform again. So I'm on my third rebuild now, which is
exciting,
exhausting, but exciting and necessary,
because
all the emotions. We needed a base to build additional functionality on, and we've just relaunched again, and we're aiming to build a platform. My vision, I guess, is to build a platform where in a single environment or a single digital platform, you could manage everything to do with your wardrobe clean out. So that is sell some clothes, rent some clothes, buy some clothes, share some clothes, get your clothes repaired, find eco-responsible and environmental responsible ways of donating or disposing of clothes. So we want to sort of build a platform where we can, for as long as possible, keep clothing in circulation and out of landfill. And then when it is end of life, identify partners that can help us to return that to the biosphere in the safest way possible. So that's the vision. It's going to take us some time to get there.
Yeah. And that kind of leads to my next question as well. Is there how are you finding your audience are reacting to that kind of platform? What is their engagement like? What do they want? What do they need from that platform?
Yeah, so
Mm.
I think the buy, sell, rent and shares was kind of a rent and share are fairly new into our platform, so they've come with the relaunch.
Yeah.
And as I said to you when we was talking before the intro, we've relaunched the new platform. We're in the horrendous data migration process at the moment, so we're migrating vendors and listings and everything at the moment. So we're in a rebuild phase currently. The share function and the rent function are fairly new. We introduced those in response to user requests on the previous platform. They wanted to be able to rent items. I love pre-loved rental. I think it's such a brilliant idea. I use it myself all the time. I think in a world where you've got loads and loads of influencers and people on Instagram and everything's photographed, there's a lot of people that don't want to be photographed in the same outfit more than once.
Yeah.
And rental's brilliant for that, right? You can rent an outfit every time you go out. And I know that a lot of my daughter's friends use rental a lot. So we thought, well, let's bring that in because people are asking for it. Let's bring share in because I kind of love the socio-economic equaling that's a word, equaling that share does. So I have something that I really don't wear anymore, and I'm happy for anyone to have it. Just pay for the postage for me to get it to you. So I love that idea.
That's really cool. Yeah, I haven't tried sharing, but I've tried the rental hiring side of things, especially for our engagement party a month ago, and I rented a dress or an outfit for that. And that was it was a really fun experience because you got to try things on in the fabrics you wouldn't normally wear because they're probably not exactly sustainable fabrics, but it's still a sustainable method. So that's where that like kind of mindset shift was for me as well. Okay, we're recycling these pieces back into the fashion world, but giving it a second life or a third life or a fourth life and bringing them back in. So that was really important to do. Do you find that which side is most popular on the platform? So would it be rental or shared or?
It depends on the it depends on the age of the person, to be honest. So largely we've largely got two almost distinct demographics that use the platform, and they are people aged up to between about 17 and I'd say 25 to 26, so that generation. And then we've got older people, predominantly women, who are probably 35 upwards. The 35 upwards, they are very connected to the environmental message and don't really care too much about what money they make. So it's not a primary source of income for them. For them, it's a way of ensuring that they're not impacting the environment through their fashion choices, which is fabulous, right? The younger demographic are also really environmentally conscious, which I love. And I do have to say that I think from doing a lot of work with that generation, I think possibly that generation is the first that we've seen that are putting environmental impact right in the center of their purchasing decisions, and it's brilliant to watch. They're actually
Isn't it amazing? It's just
they're amazing.
They're so much more forward thinking than I think we ever were like 20 years ago. And it's just
use it as a criteria for buying. What's this company like? Do they, that kind of stuff, which I love. So, but for a lot of them, that's what they're doing on Populous is income producing for them. So it's a side hustle for a lot of them, or the only hustle for some of them.
Exactly.
So they're using it to produce to generate income. So their experience with the platform and the way they engage with it and what they expect from the platform is very different from the older demographic. So our response to both of those is quite different in terms of future ideas for growth, I guess. So the older demographic want, when they do a wardrobe clean out, they want all of that stuff out of their house. They don't want to post it and sell it and stuff like that. So we're working with that user base around models for how we can become almost like their consignment seller. So send it to us, we'll post it. we'll sell it for you, we'll give you some money for it, we'll do
So
a
it's kind
needle
of like
stick,
coming
whatever.
from your
Yeah,
distribution
so
center, but where,
yeah,
yeah. So you kind of storage for their items. Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
And then
That
the
makes
younger
sense.
the younger
Because if
demographic.
they don't have the patience for it too, then it's just they're more than likely not going to wait for it to be sold or you reshared. They'll
No.
just throw it out without thinking, but with good
So
intentions in the beginning, and then the further
yeah,
we go, it's yeah,
so it
mm,
tends to end up in charity bins.
yeah,
When people get impatient with it, they go, oh, I'm just going
mm,
to throw all this stuff in a bag and I'm going to put it in a charity bin. And I don't know exactly what the stats are currently, but I know that what is usable for out of those charity bins is not 100%. So a lot of that ends up in landfill or gets shipped off offshore for another country, normally a third world country, to deal with
mm,
because it's not saleable here. So that's a whole different problem in of itself. The sort of donation model, which is one we're sort of also working through with a couple of different advisors and partners. The younger demographic, the ones that are kind of using it as income, they're also looking for additional ways to get their product to customers. So some of the things that we're working with that user base is actually physical events. So we're starting to talk to them about pre-love market events. There's a few of them that get run in Brisbane already, pre-love fashion market events where they get sold out really quickly. Can we run another one? Should we be running quarterly swap events where we can just have a massive kind of swap meet? Can we do that? And so they're really excited about those ideas because that gives them another avenue to make income out of. So we've got they're kind of our two big user groups. There's smatterings of other people in between, but predominantly there are two big user groups and mainly female. Although interestingly, some younger men who are sort of probably late teens who are starting to hit the platform now, and I haven't really delved into the analytics about what they're looking for or what they're sitting on because we've been rebuilding the platform. But once the platform's sort of more stable and it's been running in its new form for a little bit longer, we'll be able to see what they're shopping on and what their bounce rate is looking like.
Yeah, and I'd love to see how that works because it is a direct reflection on the industry too, because it's so important to see what people are reacting to and what kind of methods they want to use in regards to circularity, because it's led by them, right? So it's, what do they need? How do we cater for their needs in regards to, like, how do they want to reshare? Do they want to pay for postage, or do they, if they're local, do they want to come and pick it up? That kind of thing. So it's like, what methods are going to work for different people, and how do you like streamline it so it takes the time off your hands too?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So with I suppose the younger generation, are there some of your audience that are at that beginning step of their sustainability journey where they're really curious as in to how it works, in regards to circularity, what methods there are and how can they do better? What challenges do they normally come across?
So short answer, yes. There's
Yeah,
loads of them that
yeah,
are interested, and there's also loads of them that are not. The awareness of the impact is fairly low still as well. So
yeah.
although they're aware that throwing clothing into the bin at home is probably not the right thing to do, they're not really sure where it does go, and they wouldn't be alone because most people aren't. We've got really good guidance on that, and there's certainly no curbside recycling options for textiles. So I
You
think
think it's because it's also not on their doorstep as well, like landfill's not right there, so you don't see the damage, or exploitation is not right there, so you don't see it, or it's not your mother and it's not your sister, it's not, that kind of thing, that it's not going to happen to me, or it's not directly affecting me.
I think possibly that's part of
Yeah,
it because
yeah,
obviously some of the upstream effects of or the upstream impacts in the fashion sector of our, us buying fast fashion items, for example, are things like, pollution and labour rights issues, and there's a load of issues across that supply chain. Some of them being, really closely looked at. Some of them probably still being swept under the carpet a little bit. And loads of really brilliant people working at every level that they can across those issues in that supply chain to try and affect change, I guess. For me, we try and stick to our lane, which is the dealing with the clothing once it's been made, and trying to slow that down a little bit, trying to slow down the purchasing of new items, particularly fast fashion items, and then and by doing that, sort of affect the production cycles of those fast fashion producers, I guess. That's our big push, and trying to keep those items out of landfill, because the stats in Australia are pretty woeful, and we have a fairly poor reputation for textiles here in this country. We are the third largest polluter in the world, which is shocking, given that the second largest is America, and they have 300 million people, something ridiculous like that.
Exactly, and we're close.
26 or 27 million people, and we're coming in just behind them in terms of our impact where textile pollution is concerned. It's fairly poor.
Yeah. What does that mean? What are the statistics showing us about what our buying methods have been?
We're just rampant consumers, really. I mean, I think despite the economic issues at the moment, despite how tough the inflation rises have made everyone's lives, we are still consuming items at a rapid pace. And the consumption of cheap items in fast fashion stores is still really high. And it's hard to it's hard to criticize or judge people, right, for going into a store and buying a new T-shirt for $4 that's made by a fast fashion giant who has, all of the economies of scale and sitting behind them to be able to produce an item at that price point, and then compare it to a smaller manufacturer who is sourcing sustainable cotton and using equitable labour force, and really being very responsible and purposeful and in about making and producing the items that they produce. But the margins between those two items to make are crazy, So.
Like in my example with Noblesse, because we're made to order and we go out of our way to do the right thing, when I see that, it's because I have the curse of knowledge, and probably you as well, it's quite triggering for us, that it's hard to put that judgment aside and say, why don't people know better? So how do we be kinder to, or be more compassionate to ourselves and to others, and try and show people how we can buy better, how we can think about the buying process? What steps would you recommend that people can try today? So if you had 3 simple steps that people could use on a day-to-day basis of creating better buying decisions, what would you recommend?
So I think probably the first one is, if you need something or you want to wear something, look in your own wardrobe first, because people wear about 20% of what's in their wardrobes, and there's loads of tips out there. You can go on and sort of Google all sorts of different tips for how to do that. I saw a great one the other day where a woman was doing a wardrobe cleaner, and during the year, and I'm not saying this, I think it's a brilliant idea, but I know myself, I'm not this disciplined, but during the year, every item
Me
that
too.
she
I'm
wore,
just thinking now, I'm like, oh my God, it is 20% of my
she
wardrobe.
would, you would turn it around, right?
Yeah.
So she hang the hanger a different way around, so that at the end of the year, when she was doing
Good
her
idea.
yearly
Turn your
wardrobe
hangers
clean out,
around.
yeah, she'd see what she was wearing and what she hadn't touched for a year and go, right, well, I don't need that stuff. That can be sold or whatever. So shop your own wardrobe first.
Okay.
So that's my thing. Look at resale. Resale really should be the new retail for people. Like it should be the point that they go to first, right?
Yeah.
Particularly if they have budget limitations. So and we all do. But if they're extreme budget limitations, if you can only afford a $4 t-shirt, you can't afford to shop sustainably, then maybe go onto one of the resale sites, come to Populous, check out Depop, look at, like there's a heap of them, a heap of us out there now
great. And
that have different models.
Yeah.
Go to op shops, go spend a bit of time looking in vintage and op shops and online pre-loved fashion marketplaces. Go to pre-loved fashion marketplaces, physical marketplaces that are popping up around the place now, and look for that item there rather than spending $4, because you'll get a better item with probably a better brand that's been made to last longer, that you can keep in your wardrobe for a lot longer time. So I think there's just a lot. And then probably the third one is share and rental models. I mean, one of the reasons why I love share and swap models so much is because we do purchase a lot. I mean, on average in Australia, we buy something like 27 kilos of clothing each year and we throw out 23 kilos of it. Now, by throw out, I mean some of that's donate, but we get rid of 23 kilos of the 27 kilos that we bought every year, which is nuts, right? Yeah, nuts.
That's crazy.
And the other thing that
person, is that each person or each household?
Each person. Yeah. And then the other stat that I've
I'm ashamed.
I'm
ashamed.
It's a terrible stat, right? Yeah. It's an average out. But the other one I heard that was on an ABC report that I thought that can't possibly be true. So I tested it. And this came out a couple of years ago. So the average Australian woman has about $5,000 worth of clothing in her wardrobe. And I thought, that can't possibly be true. And so I went to friends' places and family members' places and then daughters of friends' places. And then I was doing a little bit of work with
just find Carla in the wardrobe.
Just like, what have you got in your wardrobe? Go home, check it for me. Tell me how much you think the value is.
Come home, Carla's in your wardrobe. That's
right. Yeah. It was stunning to me that that was a fairly accurate amount. So if you've got $5,000 or approximately $5,000 of value in your wardrobe, think of what you can do with that. That's an asset sitting in your house, of which you are using, according to the other stats, about 30%. So 70% of it is an asset that is just sitting there that could be income producing, or could be used to sustain and support a donation drive for women returning to the workforce, or could be used on a share platform for a kid who's coming out of university and going in interviews and needs a suit or something and can't afford to buy one. Like that, all of those things can be done really beautifully and really simply with platforms like Populous. So
yeah, definitely. And my brother had a similar experience recently where he needed a tux for a wedding, but he decided to get a black suit anyway and he rented it. So it was more about, how do I find the most sustainable way to wear something that's similar to what I need, and that's also, you're not going to affect demand either. So it's like going back to the $4 t-shirt. If you keep going back and buying that $4 t-shirt, you're telling the market that's what you want, and they're just going to keep producing more of those.
The amount of stuff being produced globally is just mind-boggling, to be honest. It's billions and billions and billions of tons of clothing being produced globally for a population of 7 billion people or whatever it is now. I think we've got 7 point something billion people globally, of which not all are high wealth, so or even medium wealth. So we're producing a crap load of clothes and textiles for a percentage of the global population.
Yeah, definitely. So is there anything else that people could be thinking about when they're buying, or when they're looking for that one piece that they need? Is there like a thought process that you have that you use in particular when you need something?
So I go through and I do the normal things. Do you really need it? And I mean, sometimes, to be fair, like, you can get really bogged down in all of this stuff. You really can. And there's an emotional component, I believe, to shopping as well. There is an emotional part of it. Sometimes when you're having a crap day, you just want to go out and buy yourself something that makes you feel good about yourself. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's a process of saying, where do I go to buy that? So for me, if I physically want to go out and get out of the office and get out of my head, or I go to op shops just because I love the process of looking at the clothes that other people have donated or given away and thinking through the story of why they would have done that. That's just my quirky little thing.
I love that. Yeah. And you can use your imagination too. Like, when did they wear this? How important was this to them? What experience did they have in this outfit? And you can really create that emotional attachment for yourself.
I was, I think last week, when the craziness of the website, the platform relaunch had got to me, I decided to go and I went out op shopping and I bought this amazing men's jacket. So, and oversized pinstripe, like the kind of thing that you would see on an elderly gentleman who had a jacket for church each week, maybe, or his one outing, or his, whatever, his that he went to, and it was awesome. Too big for me, took the shoulder pads out. It cost me $6. It's lined and it's double stitched and it's got all those inside pockets that men's jackets have that women's jackets never have.
So oh my God, I love that. Yeah.
And it's absolutely awesome and I love it so much. And I thought, I cannot believe that A, I got this for $6, and B, I wonder.
I'll share that with you. It's fine.
I wonder where it comes from. Like, who was he and where did he wear it? How long had he had it for, and all that kind of stuff. It was so beautifully made. It's like a tailored, it's beautiful. And they're the kind of things that when you, I just kind of think when you dig through op shops and you find things like that. The other thing it does when you're shopping in op shops or pre-loved fashion is it forces you to create your own sense of style, because fashion that is shoved in your face on a mannequin by a fast fashion company is something that is, it's a mold that is being presented to you that you then need to fit. And not all women and men or everyone in between fits into a mold that's being shoved at them by a fast fashion company. So I think the shopping pre-loved fashion, however you do it, whether it's op shops or digital platforms or markets, whatever, gives you the opportunity to really think about what looks good on your body and how you want to present that to the world and the story that you want to tell with the clothes that you wear. It helps you and almost forces you to create your own sense of style that's completely unique to you. And I think that's a beautiful thing for anyone to do.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot recently, especially with the launch of the podcast, is why do we feel that dread when we look at our wardrobe? Because as you said, this statistic is we only wear 20% of our wardrobe, but we still feel like we have nothing to wear, nothing that fits us, because we keep buying things that don't fit who we are and who we want to be. So it's that constant, like, okay, is this aligned to me? Does it match my values? Does it, is it going to make me feel better? in the long term, and not, is it just going to give me that short-term gain of like that top that I need for that event, but then I'll never wear it again, and it becomes part of that 80% of the wardrobe. So I think that's like a really important statistic to remember, is that we only use 20% of it. So why are we wasting the other 80% without a home? And when someone else could use it and love it and really have that emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's there's just a lot of things that can be done, and that's that share economy thinking coming back in, is kind of it sneaks in and sneaks in and out of my mouth fairly regularly, actually, is that, you know, if we have an asset that is potentially income producing sitting around our house that we're not currently using, then why wouldn't we allow someone else to use that asset, or to have that asset, or to buy that asset? If it's not producing any benefit to us, it can certainly benefit someone else.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are, obviously some people who do go to op shops and stuff are struggling financially. So if you are struggling financially, sharing your clothes and renting them could really help you get out of that slump too. So it could be that side hustle that you need. It could be the full-time, become the full-time hustle. Like I've seen a lot of people do it with markets as well, because I was a regular at markets every week, and then there was this sudden rise of like vintage pop-up markets coming up, and all the store holders were like searching for, you know, one-of-a-kind pieces they could find in op shops and then reselling them, because they were doing all the research and finding out what people wanted. And I thought that's very entrepreneurial, but it's also very resourceful, and it's building a different kind of market as well, especially a lot of young people doing it, which was refreshing, because you get the older market at the markets that have the products that stay stagnant, and then when you get new fresh ideas, it's they just find them more resourceful in the methods that they use.
Absolutely. I love I love the idea of people sort of sharing and reusing things. I do think that share and swap platforms, and probably repair networks, which is a really big passion area of mine. You can see the sewing machine sitting behind me. And as I said, that jacket I bought from Op Shop, which sat, because I'm only quite little, it sat out here on my shoulders, but I just thought, I'll just take the shoulder pads out. So I ripped the shoulder pads out. Perfect. So you know, so I think repair networks, people's access to be able to repair their clothes rather than just get rid of them. I do think that repairing clothes is a bit of a lost skill. I was to someone the other day, I had never been taught how to sew a button onto a shirt.
I've come across so many instances where people don't know how to sew, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to sew? It's quite funny to me, just because that was second nature to me, because we're from like generations of, my grandmother was a machinist, so it was like, okay, that was just a rite of passage. It was like, okay, here's how to do a button, here's how to sew seams, here's how to do hems, like, and you know how to do them, it's like second nature. So it was really interesting. If you don't have that background, then you just don't know. That's the thing.
And it was interesting to me that was an intuitive thing. Like, if you look at a button and you look at, like, it's kind of intuitive, but perhaps not. Like, there's so many things that maybe that get passed down as a generational learning, like sewing for you, that you just intuitively think everyone should be able to do, but they don't. And I've learned that through Populous. I've learned that there's loads of people that if a zip busts on something of mine, I replace the zip. Everything I buy is too long for me. I'm barely 5'3", so about 100 centimeters. Everything I buy is too long for me, so I hem everything. You know? So everything's got to come.
I kind of like doing that frayed hem now as well. Like, it's just like, oh, you know, that's like a fashion.
That'll do.
It's coming back. It's coming back.
But there's loads of people out there that if they have to do something like that, the item just gets put. If a hem comes down, they just get rid of it. Like, so, and that's, you know, going back to those three things that people can think about. Repairing your clothes, particularly if they're good quality clothes, is so worth it. You know, there's there's items that I've got in my wardrobe that I've had for 20 years. I mean, they don't stay in my wardrobe that often anymore, to be honest, now, because they're actually considered vintage and my daughter steals them most of the time. But there's items in my wardrobe that I've had for like 20, 30 years, that are, you know, just such good quality pieces that have been repaired. There's shoes in my wardrobe that I've always spent, you know, sort of, I've never bought cheap footwear. I've always bought sort of decent footwear, and everything gets resold and restitched. And I think the longevity and the story behind clothing items and clothing and fashion accessories or style accessories, like, you know, belts and shoes and jewelry, and being able to look at a piece and have memories around it, or being able to look at a piece and say, I bought that here, and the stories associated with it, buying something from an op shop that you know's got a history. That's kind of cool, I think, much cooler than walking into H&M or Zara and buying a $4 t-shirt and having it fall apart only after one season.
Yeah, definitely. That's much cooler, as well, especially for us. But yeah, there's so much information in there and so much advice. But I will jot down like all the key steps that you mentioned, so people have that to take away with them. But yeah, just to recap, so look in your wardrobe first, because we only use 20%, and resell, and share and look at pre-loved items as well, instead of spending that $4 on the t-shirt in Kmart. And share and swap, which is the new Carla phrase. Yeah.
Share and swap and repair.
And repair. Yeah, that's it. So if anyone does need repair work, obviously you've got Carla, who's got her machine right behind her, and you've got me, and we've got access to local machinists and people that can do repair work as well. So yeah, definitely reach out. But otherwise, yeah, definitely have a think about what you buy, and maybe create your own process about how you want to buy and how you want to feel at the end of the day, which I think is really important for people to start thinking about, because we don't have any excuses now to do anything else. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Carla. I know I've gained so much value from this, so I hope everyone else has too. And if you want Carla on again for round 2, you can definitely nominate. And yeah, any last comments from you, Carla? Any questions you have for the audience, or where can we find you? So if anyone has any questions for you, they can come and find you and speak to you directly.
They can come directly onto the platform. So we're populousthreads.com.au.
Okay. That link as well.
You can get hold of me on email at info@populousthreads.com.au. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to have conversations with people. It's stopping me talking that's generally the issue, rather than starting me. and I really enjoyed coming on. So thank you so much for having me, Fiona. Really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation.
Thank you so much for being here.